Whoa.
Shudder Club.
It's got levers and sliders and a 32-step sequencer and all the other joys to it. I'm like, yes, give it to me.
Levers, buttons, and sliders are three of the best things in the world.
Yeah, as a kid who grew up watching Star Trek and such, there's a part of me that just wanted to be Mr. Sulu, punching buttons and making shit happen.
You know what? The actual technology we have is kind of cool, but I would prefer a reality where we have that artificial technology with just lots of random LED flashing lights that don't mean anything.
What does this output display mean? Nobody knows, but it's doing shit.
I just want wall panels of just like flashing LED lights that mean nothing. But first, I want to point out that I'm drinking Cider Boys hard apple cider, first press.
That's my second one that I'm having.
It's a little apple-ish. It's a little more apple-ish than I would like, but it's okay.
Well, cider usually is apple-ish.
I was hoping it would be
more. I've had some pineapple and pear ciders that were actually really good.
Oh, interesting.
It's not bad by any means. It's just a much stronger apple flavor than I was anticipating.
Yay, we're back to the original Shudder Club.
That's weird.
I'm Dan Carlson, 1/3 of Us Three Blokes.
I'm John Kadolf, another third of Us Three Blokes.
Hi, I'm Dave Nesbitt, and I'm frighteningly sober, and also a member of Us Three Blokes. So what was that movie we watched again?
We watched a movie called Spiral. It is not the movie I thought it was. John recommended it, and I thought I got behind it right away because I thought it was the Chris Rock Saw sequel.
Yeah, I noticed that you put that on there.
Not coming out till next year.
Yeah, well, it was funny because
when I think you just redlined everything.
When I told you the name of the movie, you were like, "Oh, that fits into the Saw genre," and I'm like,
"No,
it
doesn't
feel like it." But upon watching it a third time now, my opinion is slowly changing on it.
Really?
Not on the opinion about it being related to the Saw genre, but just my opinion in general is wearing thin.
Oh, so you don't like it as much on a third viewing as you did on your initial?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, all right. I guess we should just get into it then.
Yeah.
Spiral is a movie from this year, and is it a Shudder exclusive?
Yes, it is.
I don't remember. I thought it was. Anyway, it is about a couple that moves into suburb America, country kind of non-urban. What is that word? Rural America.
It's a rural suburb.
Yes.
As opposed to a city suburb, and you can tell the difference immediately.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so they move in, and they're getting themselves settled. They have a daughter, and they're getting all set up, and one of the first nights that they're there, one of them hears a thumping on the wall, and next morning thinks that, oh, well, that was just a branch banging against the house, cuts it off, notices a guy standing there, older man standing there staring at him. And the man just kind of sighs. He just goes, and then turns and walks away. Immediately, Malik, who's played by
Jeffrey Boyer Chapman as Malik, who I think really did a great job in this film. Yeah.
And anyway, so he sees this guy, kind of just sigh and turn around, and he assumes it's because of one thing, and you find out much later that it is for a very different reason.
Aaron is the biological father of so it's this couple with their daughter, and the biological father is Ari Cohen. Or that's the actor, the character.
Yeah.
Aaron.
Okay, so Aaron answers the door, and there's a lady there with a welcoming plant, and she goes, oh, well, I saw your gardener, so I thought I'd come over. And he's like, gardener? Oh no, that's my partner. And she's like, oh, well, that's interesting, we don't have any of you in the neighborhood yet. And so at first it seems like she's going to be homophobic or something like that, but really it just it's the whole thing is a ruse.
Yeah.
But so spoilers, everyone, I'm spoiling the movie in this.
I think you need to spoil this movie. You don't
you
don't
kinda
need to be coy with
You
it.
kind of have to, because it's definitely a town with a dark secret film. And they also, when you actually go to see the film, they mention right off the bat that this is a town with a dark secret film.
After the third viewing, I found Aaron to be very cynical, very aloof, very distrustful of everyone but his partner.
Yeah.
I mean, I should say trustful of everyone except for his partner. Distrustful of his partner.
Having only watched it once, I felt like he was just he was kind of falling into the trope of the usual trope of the spouse that doesn't want to leave and has spent a lot of money on this new house and doesn't want to just uproot everything because someone is saying.
And also, this is very clearly Aaron's dream and not necessarily Malik's, but Malik is kind of going along. And Aaron is really trying so hard to hold on to his dream of living out, in the rural area away from Chicago.
Right.
And Malik, unfortunately, years before had a horrifying circumstance happen involving his boyfriend at the time getting beaten to death, basically.
Yeah. Okay, they don't indicate that he was beaten to death early on in the film. They only show that they were attacked and that the car gets beaten, and then later on in the film, they reveal that that Liam, who's Malik's boyfriend, was taken out of the car and beaten. But they still don't say that whether or not he was killed. The actual reveal that he was killed doesn't occur until almost the end of the movie when Malik is in jail and Aaron comes to visit him to tell him he's leaving him. So again, rather than being a supporting partner who gives their partner the benefit of the doubt and or at least wants to hear their side, he just like, I'm out of here. Yeah. And so, I mean, I can understand that, but he just is like, the dude's a dick.
Yeah. To me, there was, okay, so to continue on, just to fill in the holes real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like holes. I mean,
Yeah, me too. But in this case, I'm talking about the plot ones we need to fill in. So Aaron and Malik are living there. I think I killed him. Aaron and Malik are living out in the suburbs. Malik is trying to work on a book. Aaron is kind of living his life, and their daughter, Kayla, is just getting used to this whole moving from Chicago into this urban area. She's setting up...
He's a writer. Malik's a writer, by the way.
Yeah.
And it seems like he writes about civil rights.
Yeah. Because he's constantly going back to this video of a guy who ran a gay conversion clinic.
It was my understanding that was the neighbor that we saw. That maybe I was wrong. I thought that was the case.
You were wrong.
Oh, okay.
Wrong.
I paid attention, and apparently I didn't see the same movie everybody else did.
But as they're kind of going through and living their life, Malik is starting to notice more and more odd things happening, like the old man next door looking at them funny, and then he finds the old man hanging out in their backyard in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. Comes out to confront him about it, and the old man gives him a piece of paper and says, hold on to this. And the paper looks blank, but later it turns out that there's a code built into it.
Right.
And Malik, like, at one point in time, I think it's like the second day they're there, somebody comes into their house and paints the word "fuck" they got on their wall, and he paints over it. But the thing that got me, and this is where I started having some issues with the film, I like the film in general, but you kind of have to be aware that it's a film where everybody's filling their role and filling their place.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes a little too well.
Yeah. Because Malik starts having issues of missing time, where he's missing 2 hours here or 4 hours there. And he's also taking some kind, I don't think they go into what kind it is, but he's taking some sort of medication to help him with PTSD issues. Now, if it was me, I take antidepressants, and if I started having missing time as a result of anything, my next stop would be a neurologist, because clearly something's gone wrong.
Right, right.
But he just rolls with it, and it becomes a plot point later when there's a conspiracy to basically drive him and his husband apart. And during that missing time, well, some things happened. Across the street, you basically have the leaders of the neighborhood who are the lady who thought that Malik was the gardener, and her husband. Long story short, the entire town more or less is in on a conspiracy to engage in a ritual that will result in, you realize that basically the town is periodically, every 10 years, sacrificing somebody to pay for immortality.
Right, exactly. And eating them.
And eating them.
Yeah, so,
yeah, that was the absolute shocker of the scene for me, was when that happened.
Right, yes, oh my God. A couple points on that. Again, going back to the Aaron thing. Was it just me, or do you feel like he is a natural gaslighter?
Aaron?
Aaron.
I didn't get any of that from what I watched.
I don't think that Aaron was intentionally gaslighting or that he would fall into it, but I think that Aaron wanted his dream so much.
I think here's what I think, just from watching it once. You watched it several times, maybe you're more onto something than I was. But I felt like Malik was a little more distrustful of people in general before this, and maybe that fed into the way that Aaron reacted. And Aaron obviously was blindsided by his dream, but he really wanted it to work. I don't think that he was gaslighting in any. He also was really trying to ingratiate himself with the neighbors.
And see, okay, so if you watch it another time, I think what you'll get a little bit of the sense of where I'm coming from on this. It's every time he expresses a concern, and after you've seen the movie once and you know where it ends, and then you go back and watch it a second time, you'll notice what I'm talking about. Coming from a very untrusting partner to a person who is emotionally damaged because of an event, and and he keeps telling him, "Oh, you always do this," and oh, just knock it off, and oh, I understand you've been through a horrible experience, but now I've been taught that the word "but" invalidates everything before the word in the sentence, and so I try very hard, and I fail a lot, but I try very hard not to use the word "but" in a sentence when I don't want to invalidate everything I've just said to the person. So he does use that word a lot, and tends to invalidate Malik's concerns. Yes, he has a dream. Yes, he's trying to fulfill that dream for him, for his daughter, for his partner, and he's hoping that his partner understands the dream once it starts happening. But Malik is privy to a lot of information that Aaron doesn't have, nor does he want to hear. Obviously, because of his constant dismissal of Malik's concerns. So what we have is, okay, and this is where I say Mythos-Approved. Wham!
Yeah.
Because this movie has a sinister plot that is not related specifically to homophobia, but touches on the disastrous state that it causes. But wow, my thoughts are like everywhere on this movie. At the end, it really brings it all together as far as what the community preys on. And the way that they do that is by finding a minority group that will fit their storyline, and no one will really give a crap about the outcome because of who they were, whether they're gay, whether they're Muslim, whether they're probably in the 60s, it was that they were black, or even before that, Italians or Irish, or that kind of thing. So
I mean, so the whole gaslighting thing didn't really become a big. I didn't notice it the way you did. Maybe I would have. And for me, what at the end, it's sort of the character may be a gaslighter. I'll take your word for it. I'll have to watch, like I said, I'll have to watch it again. But the movie isn't gaslighting, because at the end it actually broadens what it's saying. It's not just about this
Right.
instance. It's about things that happen to different groups, like minority groups, and anybody who's been marginalized, how they're put in a position where they can be abused, and no one, and they don't really have the avenues to justice that someone who is privileged, a white male Christian, basically,
Right.
Yeah.
would have.
So, and you bringing that up, I mean, this is a very timely movie for the times that we're in, as far as awareness of things like white privilege and just the gaslighting of the nation by the government, and saying, oh, you guys have been complaining about this for years, come on, it's not that bad anymore, all of that kind of stuff, oh, we're over that. Nobody's doing that anymore, but it is happening. It is, I mean, it's right in our faces all the time, and the media and the government constantly are shoving down our throats that things are getting better when they're really getting worse. They're just being applied with more subterfuge.
Well,
And so okay, so what we have is we have a community. Thanks for getting me back on track, guys. we have a community of immortals, and they pay for their immortality with the killing of what was indicated to me a virgin. Okay, and here's where I get that from. The boy from next door that she gets together with tests her and finds out she's a virgin, because he is getting together with her physically, and she goes, I just want you to know I've never done this before. And he's like, thank you for telling me that. I think we should wait. And it's an indicator right there. They're playing sweet music and everything else, like he's trying to be all sweet and understanding and a gentleman, but really he's like, yes, we gotta, yes, now we have a virgin, I'm gonna eat her heart tonight. So like I say, second time you watch this, you pick these things up real quick. So Malik is set up.
The second they got to that, I went, well, I know what they're looking for.
Yeah. So Malik was set up in a number of different ways. Again, even the community is gaslighting him because they set him up, because they switch his medication around, which we find out after he moves into that hotel. When you look back, that's where he lost that time. They ended up taking pictures of him with the grandson of the old man next door. Yep. That was no grandson. That was that man's lover, because of the anguish that guy, when he came over to seek the comfort of Malik, the anguish that he was showing Malik was not anguish of a grandson. It was the anguish of a lover.
Yeah.
And it was typified by when he buried his face in Malik's neck and started, basically groping him and saying, I miss him so much. I miss him so much. That was becoming a sexual thing.
Yeah.
And, so that indicated to me lover, not grandson. And, yeah. So the old man, then, when you look back at the beginning of the film, when he was standing there looking at Malik and he sighed and turned and walked away, he was like, God damn it.
We're doing this again.
These guys are going to die. So he was sighing, not because he didn't want to see a gay man standing in his neighborhood. He was sighing because he knew the fate of that gay man.
Yeah.
And he was a victim way back, just like several of the other people in the neighborhood were victims way back. And they were alone because their partner was sent down a spiral of insanity, driven crazy, and were pitted as the fall guy for a murder suicide that never happened. And most of them didn't have the wherewithal to leave and get out of the situation, or they were forced to stay and become part and
Members of
parcel
the community.
to what was going on in this cult.
Are any of the participants in this cult unwilling participants?
Well, the old man was. That's why he
Yeah.
was killed.
Right.
You know, he didn't. That's why he was trying to warn them. You know, he is what Malik became after Malik gathered all the information about what was happening, watched the videos that the ghost showed him. So, I mean, you know, just the fact that there was a ghost who handed him VHS tapes. I mean, okay, so I mean, this whole thing is mythos, right? You know, it's there's ghosts, there's you know, a demonic cult that preys on virgins to subsist their immortality, and it's all done in such a way that makes a person think he's going crazy, and it just brings it all together, wham, and. You know,
I'm
okay,
confused.
so,
Did you love this movie or did you not love this movie?
you know, and that's where at the beginning of this I said my patience with the movie was wearing thin. And as I've been speaking about it, I've actually realized that my patience with the movie wasn't running thin. My patience with certain characters and the way they were written was running thin.
Do you think they were written poorly, or do you think they were written in a way that maybe irked you a little bit? Just
it irked me, not only, but yeah, I mean, the actors did a very good job portraying the roles they were given. And you have to ask yourself sometimes, so what I'm looking at right here, this annoying actor playing this annoying role, is this the director or is this the actor? Is this the
I don't know, because I'm sitting down watching the film, and my thought was it felt like wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, the plot line is set up. You have character archetypes. Malik, to me, was one of the few that really stood out in terms of being a character, and so did Kayla. But everybody else kind of felt like a cardboard cutout filling
Like a
their
trope.
space.
well, Kayla's father is basically the character we see in all these horror movies where everybody's trying to say get out of the house, and he's like, no, we spent all this money, we moved to this town, we're not leaving. That's just so I didn't even think twice. I didn't think of that as gaslighting. Maybe
no,
I thought of it as
it just comes across
a trope.
Yeah, he comes across as blinding himself to everything that he sees around him. And of course, we're all seasoned horror veterans, and we are all the ones who sit there shouting, "Don't open the door!" or whatever.
And the magic is if you can take yourself out of that, because obviously we've all seen so much horror and so much drama and, you know, movies of all kinds, but we know the tropes, we identify those tropes, and we can see it happening. But if you can take yourself out of that and not look at it that way, and that's what I try to do the second and third time I watched, I realized that, excuse me, the writer wrote those tropes like a little immaturely. I thought.
Actually, my opinion is that he was using the tropes to do something original outside of the tropes, but you didn't get that until the end. I thought that ending actually was the big statement.
Sure, and I understand that.
And I think that in order to get there, they had to engage the tropes at the usual level before,
you know, there's
ascended from them.
Right. And there's writing a trope and playing a trope, but there's writing and playing there's playing a trope to death.
Yeah.
And I felt that that's what Aaron's character was doing for sure, because it was just like every time you saw him, you could predict what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And that to me was lazy writing, and or perhaps lazy acting.
I don't think it was lazy acting. I think the actor who played Aaron did a good job with not a whole hell of a lot. The problem is that his job is basically to sit there and be the anchor that holds all of the primary characters in this one place so they can be part of the plot. The downside of this is that he now has to sit there and look like a damn fool the entire time to something that looks readily obvious to the rest of us.
Right.
And I mean, like, I'm sitting here watching it, and I think that some of the stuff in here worked originally, but this is a film, like, the rewatchability of this film is not very high, because you have to sit down to really enjoy this film. You have to sit down and ignore an awful lot of elements that would have made me immediately go, yep, well, it's been nice, goodbye, and leave.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing to me, is that the writing itself could have saved the film, but also because of the fact that it's all very much a part of a piece and part of a formula,
I'd add that
it doesn't work.
But I'd add that Malik is kind of participating in that, in the sense that when something very obvious happens, like the epithet written on their wall, that could have, if it had been left there, would have been obvious evidence that there's an issue. He painted over it before anyone could notice, so that he could keep the peace a little bit.
The daughter was home all day. She would have seen it as well.
Okay, but well, that's not addressed. So
no, it's not addressed, but she's sitting there while he's painting. So to me, it indicated that she had seen it as well. And that, I don't know, there were just little things about the writing that just ignored common sense and just drove home the character tropes a little too deep,
Okay.
and like I said earlier, that's the magic of it, is allowing somebody to step out of that by writing these character tropes so that they are slowly building, and that and not right in your face, and then what they are, so you might as well just omit them, because you can write the dialogue yourself as you're watching the movie.
None of you guys have mentioned the daughter in it all. She's actually pretty good in this movie.
She does a great job, but she, again, as part of the plot, she's just kind of there. I mean, I understand that I'm watching.
She provides the one outright horror moment for the Shudder crowd.
That ending really did blow my mind. But again, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and I'm like, there's nothing particularly original in watching how she plays the character. There's nothing particularly fresh about her plot line. And I feel bad saying that, because, again, she took something where there was not a whole, the actress took something where there wasn't a whole lot on the page and really did a great job with it. This is a film where I sit there, this is one of those films where I sit there and go, all right, I'm going to enjoy the performances, and I'm going to ignore the things about the way that the structure handles it. I'm going to ignore that.
Sure.
So that way I can enjoy the performances.
Yeah, I think she did a great job, but the character's forgettable. She's only there as a placeholder until the end, when the point is driven home of what the plot is. Living in a family of great diversity. I used to call us the rainbow family, because literally every aspect of the LGBTQ community was represented in our family. And in our immediate family, where the kids were growing up and stuff. And the level of how do I say this? The level of wavering respect for that by the daughter, where sometimes she's shown to be very caring of that, and at other times appears to be somewhat resentful of that in the way that she speaks to Malik. So it's, growing up in a diverse family like that, you certainly would be subject to the prejudices of the outside as you're growing up. However, living in that family, you realize that those prejudices are false, and that or in most cases false, and that and you either ignore or squash them, hopefully squash them. Like, for example, her boyfriend over the phone, as the father's leaving the room, says, just do me a favor and don't share any drinks with them.
How
the fuck does that daughter not say, fuck you, asshole, and hang up on him, never to return his call?
And also, you have to remember that the film is set in the early to mid 19. Actually, no, it It had to have been about 1992 because they showed Malik is sitting in his car dealing with his issues toward the tail end, and they're playing the somewhat legendary disaster of a speech that was done by Pat Buchanan during the 92 Republican convention,
Oh, yeah, right.
which is the subtitle.
Hearing that speech over what was happening at the moment was pretty
Oh
powerful.
man, that
Oh yeah,
freaking gave me chills.
it was it. I'm sitting there and I'm like, you could, and again, here's where I sit there and go, I'm not that great on the writing, but damn, the performances are amazing.
That's a moment where I felt the writing was actually on point.
It depends because the writing in terms of like the dialogue and such worked out well. And I'm actually going to stand up for Kayla as a character because she's a teen. Teens are, shall we say, a little mercurial.
I also want to
some
say
days
that
it's like I want to love you, and some days I want to hurt you, and some days it's both.
Lovecraft Country approaches racism in a very in-your-face, matter-of-fact, no holds barred, this is the truth of it sort of way. Okay, it doesn't build character tropes and push them to a limit where you just want to throw up. It shows you just what it was and how terrible things were and how terrifying things were.
still are.
Even without mythos creatures chasing you down trying to eat your brain or kill your friends. That fuck, man, the 60s and 50s, goddamn, I mean, all the way from the Civil War has to have been terrifying for
Till right now. I would suggest that
all the way till now.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the whole time has to have been and is terrifying to African Americans. Jesus Christ. I mean, everything we're seeing now in today's society and the media that is honorably reflecting those things is
to an extent.
It's so sad. Yeah. I mean, and okay, I'll be the first to admit that when the term white privilege first started being used, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it because I wasn't raised in a racist home. And I was, I lived in a racist society and I saw it and I pushed back against it. But now after a few years of the use of the term white privilege and seeing it happening day after day after day, I realize my white privilege and I push back against that rather than pushing back against things because what I used to push back against was superficial.
Kind of felt that way ever since I was like 6 years old and saw my first episode of All in the Family, and I saw, I always sided with Meathead, so I agree with all the things you're saying about this movie. I'm allowing it some leeway because of when it is set and it's
sure.
And what it's trying to do within that. I think it's trying to work within that framework to kind of get to where you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
for some reason, I just wasn't able to get the writers and directors display of that properly. I just don't think that they hit it home like they needed to.
Oh, it's no Get Out, but I thought it was good.
I know for me I sit there and it's a film that all of the parts are there, but I don't think they ever really establish a way in which all the parts gel together so that they can that it really feels like a complete whole. It just kind of feels like, I don't know, it just does not feel as though all of the parts fit the right way. Like it is just this far from being something that would have been really amazing.
Yeah.
But there are formula elements and then there are story elements and character elements because of that make it really, really difficult for me to kind of take it past the point of press play but once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I
would
don't
say
see it
that,
as
yeah.
I don't see it as a film that I would come back and watch multiple times, because as much as I appreciate the work that everybody put into this, and especially, the three central actors who really held everything down without a whole lot of with stuff, they did a lot with not a whole lot on the page.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
they did such a great job with it, but the structure, it's kind of like you sit there and go, well, the outside of the building looks great, but it has kind of a crap foundation and it might fall in on itself. And that's
Yeah,
kind of my
fair,
feeling on this film.
fair. And unfortunately, it was unsuccessfully pulled off. And I think this is what separates movies like um
A Get Out.
like Spiral against Get Out,
Yeah.
for example, or Spiral versus Lovecraft Country, for example. This just doesn't hold up properly as a period piece. It's too predictable. It's too it's cliche. It's a
Um,
cliche period piece.
there's three powerful. I always there's the rule of three good scenes, no bad scenes.
Yeah.
Makes a good movie. I can mention three good scenes. The really shocking moment with the daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
The montage with the horrifying Pat Buchanan speech over the
Oh God,
overlay
yeah.
of that, and
Yep.
the ghost with the videotape.
Yes.
So, but were there any bad scenes? For me, not that many, but I guess apparently there were quite a few for you guys. So,
It's one of those where you sit there and it's kind of like that moment when you sit there and watch the referee stand up and go, upon further review. And when I'm sitting there and I was walking away going, yeah, it was good, but it could have been so much better. And again, this is one of those times where I wonder how much of it got killed in editing. I wonder how much of it was producers' choices.
Woo!
I wonder how much of it is
Sorry.
John sitting here zinging and zapping, because that stuff's amazing. But it just doesn't feel like it came across as, it needed a little more focus. It needed a little bit more, it needed a little bit less of the stereotypical elements of making a character into a trope, and then I would be all over it.
I'm going to say press play, but only if you're willing to watch it a second time. Because for me, watching it a second time and then this morning a third time really hit home what the writers were getting at,
Yeah.
and what the original vision of the film is, without the okay, like Dan said, three good scenes versus zero bad scenes. I agree. There were at least three good scenes. And I think that there were at least zero bad scenes, only bad lines.
Yeah.
I love the movie. I will watch it again. It does drive home a lot of feelings and a lot of issues. But I gotta say, either the director or the writer didn't deliver. One of the two. I think the actors were fantastic. I think the concept and the vision is fantastic. I think the message is fantastic. And I think that the aspect of horror that it needed to be was fantastic. I don't think that, I think that it was either the writer or the director that fell short. And I love the movie. I'm going to watch it again. I'll keep supporting it. But I only say press play if you're willing to watch it twice.
okay.
Because you have to see those subtle, you have to go back, because when you watch it the second time, so much more opens up. You realize why people did things. You realize why this person had this look on his face, and that thing happened, and this happened, and this was said, and that was said, and it opens it back up a little bit. That's
Dave?
my take.
It's a press play, but I'm going to inverse John's. I'm like, it's a film that, I don't know. I saw it once and I'm like, okay, it worked for what it was. But I don't know. It's a film that I would sit down and watch once and suggest that people watch once, because it's an enjoyable film, but it doesn't stand up to my mind to repeated viewing. And who knows, maybe I'll come back in a year and go, okay, I'll watch it again, and then call up John and go, okay, dude, you were right. I apologize. But right now, I don't know. There was I think part of it is that I'm just disappointed because it
I
felt like
was
there was a lot of potential and it didn't follow through.
I was disappointed that we weren't watching the sequel to Saw, which is what I thought we were going to be watching.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Sorry.
Because I actually think this might be one of the best movies of the year.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was watching this documentary, Video Nasties, Moral Panic, Censorship, and Videotape.
Mhm.
And one of the guys, if you all know about the Video Nasties, basically the UK, led by Mary Whitehouse, and I think a guy named, I can't remember his name now. There's a politician who was fledgling and just kind of wanted to pass a bill. So he passed this bill against the Video Nasties, criminalizing a lot of these movies. Video store owners didn't know which movies were on the list, so they would actually be renting out movies illegally and not know it, and they'd get raided and arrested, and it actually destroyed a lot of lives.
Holy shit.
Yeah, these are movies that you or I could watch, right now on Shudder, like Cannibal Holocaust, Evil Dead,
Wow.
things like Evil Dead and things like that.
So it was like prohibition on
yeah, it was a right-wing kind
horror
of
movies.
right-wing kind of reaction against really, and these movies did kind of beg for. So the people who were releasing Cannibal Holocaust at the time said they copied a Mary Whitehouse and pretended to be upset about it, and wrote them a letter saying, "Look at this horrible shit," because they thought they were going to get a neat splash quote on the back of their release. Instead, what happened was the film got outright banned, and this law got passed. So movies like Driller Killer and things like that got kind of sucked into it, and so it actually destroyed people's lives. People were getting arrested for for selling or renting these tapes that you or I take for granted we could watch at a moment's notice now. And the guy they interviewed, Martin Barker, who is an author, the documentary is great because it interviews both people who are against all of that and people who were involved in it. But one of the people they interview was an author named Martin Barker, who published a book called Video Nasties, Freedom and Censorship in the Media. And what he was talking about was historical memory, and how the next time there's a panic like that, we won't remember how people got away with these things. He said the evangelical got away with fraud. They now laugh it off. They move on because they want to dominate the present. They don't care about history. We have to care about the way things are controlled in the past. If we don't keep that historical memory, we will allow them to do it again. And to me, that's what that is in Spiral, when the main character leaves his book for the next person to read and understand what has been happening to him, so that the next group of people can say, look what's happening, and stop it from happening. So I think there's
a bigger
I think it's a message from the past to the present.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's a bigger, more important movie than we were giving it credit for.